Good Monday morning. Welcome to the Cheryl and Shirley Show. Today, I have Matt Zacher. He's running as the mayor in the city of Wisconsin Rapids in Wisconsin. And I just want to say welcome, Matt, and thank you for joining us. And Matt's going to give us a little bit of his background information, and then we're going to go into a few questions.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Appreciate the time to be able to introduce myself and share some of my thoughts. Again, my name is Matt Zacher. I grew up in New Berlin, Wisconsin. I went to Catholic Memorial High School in Waukesha. After the high school, I went into the military for right under 4 years. During that time, I spent a year and a half in Desert Storm for about a year and a half. And when I got home from that, it wasn't too long after that, I was in UW Milwaukee. I started college there. 5 years later, I finished my master's degree in social work, juvenile corrections, worked a few programs with the youth in the Juvenile Correctional Institute. Then I did a little traveling overseas, but I think one of the more fun jobs I did was in Utah, taking kids into the wilderness versus having to send them to the institution, knowing full well once they get to the institution, it's pretty tough to get them focused on a new direction in life. After that, I came home, met my wife, Jenny, and we got married. We lived in Milwaukee, started having children. At that point in time, we moved up to Wisconsin Rapids. So that's 18 years ago. And now we have 4 children, Martin, Lydia, Simon, and Vivian. Have been working at Express Recycling. That was a family business that started about 5 months before we moved up here. And then I joined with Pat and Joe Kazicki, who are my parent in-laws. We bought them out later on as my brother Tim moved up here with his wife, Ann, who is also my wife's sister. And we continued building that business together. And 18 years later, we are where we are with 12 employees and servicing Wisconsin Rapids and Stevens Point and the surrounding areas for any recycling needs they may have. During that time, I spent 5 years in the Chamber of Commerce, 2 years as the chairman of that board, and then also started a company called a nonprofit company, 501c3, called Sustainable Operations and Recycling. Learned the ins and outs of the nonprofit world, how to raise money that way to try to help recycling efforts. Didn't grow into anything huge, but we did learn some valuable lessons and saw how that worked, and were able to accomplish some good programs during that time.
Well, first, let me say thank you very much for your service. Desert Storm, that was a tough time. I have a cousin-in-law that also served there, and he actually has some medical issues from that. So hopefully you don't.
A lot of people have. Yeah, I've been very fortunate that way.
Well, why don't we go on to maybe why you want to run for mayor here in Wisconsin Rapids? What made you motivate to do that? Because we're sitting here talking a little bit, and you seem like a pretty relatively calm guy who now is coming into this spectrum of running for mayor, which is a nonpartisan position, people. So remember that. And the election is coming April 2nd. So make sure that you get out and vote. We just want to kind of know what made you decide to step up and run now.
I would say I've always been intrigued, but I'm kind of cautious about my words, I guess. If I don't really know what I'm talking about, I try not to say anything at all. So once COVID started and things started getting kind of crazy, I said, for me to really understand what I'm talking about, I need to get into the systems itself. Obviously, local is one of the paths in order to do that. And, it's right at your doorstep. It's everything we do, everything we talk about. It's right here. We know the people. We have to talk face to face, hopefully. So I decided to, I guess, get out of the armchair quarterback position and actually jump in and find out what it's about. So 3 years ago, I ran for alderman and I won that race. And then a year ago, I ran again and won that race. Since then, I've been learning, the ins and outs of how the government works, who the people are that are in it, the bureaucracy that is built because of it. And so it's been very important. I think probably something I understood but wanted to confirm is people are people first, and everybody has a story, who their parents were, how they were raised, the friends they had growing up, the jobs they chose, the education they chose, helps them evolve or forces them to evolve into who they are as the adults that we're dealing with now on a day-to-day basis. And based on that is how they're going to end up voting and how they're going to see everything they're doing. It is interrelated with who they are as a person. And so you can't really, for me personally, I find common ground with everybody first. I understand who they are as a person. So you build some trust with the people you're talking to in hopes of then understanding better why they're voting the way they're voting, instead of just they only vote this way or that way because it's one way or the other. What I'm finding is it's not one way or the other. It's a whole spectrum of opinions and understandings and beliefs. And somehow we simplify it into saying you either think this way or you think that way. And that's part of the problem. And I think that's what's going to help me out most as mayor, now stepping into this role, if I am elected, to be able to continue the progress of understanding where people are coming from their position, and trying to build bridges between those people and people who think differently so that we can all move forward as much as possible in the same direction as the Wisconsin Rapids city, but also as the surrounding areas working together to build up our communities.
Imagine that, trying to get along with everyone and make sure that we can move forward and do what's right for everyone, not just one group of people. And I think, or one spectrum of people. I think that's what's happened to us too. We've talked a little bit about that off air too, of how people are so divided right now. And it's sad that we can't have a conversation, just even if you agree to disagree, it's okay. There's people that I agree to disagree with every day. My husband's one of them. So it just, yes, exactly. That's how it works. With that in mind, since you've been on the city council as an alderman, what do you see as like major issues? Because obviously you know what the major issues are here. And you talked a little bit about how you would be different in trying to businesses here, to start businesses or to get people here to get involved in businesses. I thought your concept was pretty good about keeping it local if you can, people that want to have something going, bring other people in if you need to, but don't give away the whole gamut of everything to them. I mean, I know a lot of places will give free tax this and that. And, obviously Wisconsin Rapids was the king and queen of paper mills, and we no longer have that to fall back on. So as a mayor in the city, that can be a tough issue, is bringing businesses here. We've seen some of them open recently. I saw Marshall's is now looking to hire. I'm excited about that. Keep that in mind. And maybe I asked you too much, but I think you can handle it.
I'll see what I can do. I think it just brings me to, I guess, what at this point is evolving as my platform. And I say evolving because as I'm talking to people in the community, I've got my signs up. I've done what I can to kind of get my name out there. And I encourage anybody to call me 715-321-0727. To me, it's easy to just call and talk than it is, especially right now with social media, the way it is. It's kind of like stepping on a landmine. As soon as you kind of put something out there, no matter how professional you try to be about it, just kind of blows up. So I'm kind of
on one side, people on the other, and they just kind of poof, and
Yeah.
instead of trying to see the middle and trying to see both sides of that.
Right.
Which is what you're trying to do.
Right. And it's very hard to do. Yeah. I would like to find a way, because by no means do I think social media is going anywhere. It's only going to grow and become more of a part of our lives. But to be able to connect properly or get people to fully understand what it is that you're trying to say, social media is not the way to do it. You have to be able to talk face to face and get body language and facial expressions and just have some compassion by looking in each other's eyes and saying, oh, first and foremost, we're both human, and we need to be able to communicate on that level so that we can hear each other out and then find that middle ground, which I believe is always there. So the platform, the first thing that I would say is we talked a little bit about budget, and I've been on the finance committee as the chair for the last 2 years. And I was a big part of the first year that I was in. I was wanting to dive into the budget more and more. It could go into a long story about it, but my main goal is to get roads are something that we can all agree on that aren't that great, but they're really not that great anywhere as far as I can see until the road gets redone. And then it's beautiful for the next, hopefully 20, 25 years, if we can get that out of it in Wisconsin or anywhere for that matter. For us right now, the way it's designed is we have a $42 million budget. And that is not all from taxes. That's from different programs that come in. But then the tax portion or the levy portion is about between 16 and 18 million, depending on how that plays out. And the tricky part about it is we levy limits. We can only raise the levy according to what the state will allow us to raise it. And that's for the operational expenses. But what they will allow us to raise the levy for is debt financing. So to pay off debt. So then the way we've overcome that is fund the operational budget, which is about $42 million. And then on top of that, we say we want to do about a mile worth of roads, new road construction within the city limits, which I believe is 75 miles total. I'm going to have to check on that. In order to fund that, we take out $2 million in debt every year, roughly somewhere in that ballpark in order to fund that. I would like to dive into each of the departments and figure out if there are ways to restructure the government that we have at our level so that we can start to work out how we can merge things and see things differently and be able to bring that $2 million within the budget so that we can do away with the debt that we're incurring every year, which is like a 20-year rotational debt, but it adds up over time. And if you take on other projects like a fire station or a fire truck or an aquatic center, those things all are special case projects that add a lot to the debt and then puts us in a riskier position as a small municipality. So I would like to try to get that under control as part of my first platform idea.
That sounds relatively smart to do. Get rid of debt. That's a good thing. I know that recently the assembly passed something had to do with maybe bringing more money to municipalities. Would that help at all in that? Or is that not something that will generate a lot? And then also the other thing is when you cap that, said that the state only allows you to go to a certain amount on the levy. Do you go to that amount every time? Because if you don't, then the state won't allow you to go up again, right? Because I've seen that in school boards too.
So the first part of the question, we did in shared revenue. They've increased that quite a bit, and that's all come from a state surplus. In my understanding, I don't know the ins and outs of everything that's happened at the state level. That shared revenue was something that stayed stagnant for, I think it was decades. Like it was a long time because of the surplus that was there and some, the act that they passed. We ended up with about $950,000 extra dollars this coming year. Yeah. 2020. Yeah. So sorry.
He's thinking.
I was thinking and how that plays out. And again, then the trick is because it's a government. So you have all these departments, you have all these people right away that are going to be vying for that money. And especially, public safety is always a big one and all the big cost items that go along with it. But some of it we did disperse into the roads to try to pay down some of the debt that's going to be incurred by the roads. And then some of it was shifted to employee. We worked on a pay raise scale that is going to be being worked out starting now into the future. So some of the money went into that, and it's all very tricky. And for me, the most important thing as an alderman, I only had a certain amount of time to dive into the budget. So I asked us to have the budget on every monthly meeting so that we could start talking about it and trying to make sure that it stays on the forefront of what we're talking about versus just tackling it right at the end of the year. And by that time, it's hard to make any changes and it's hard to make any decisions based on it. So in the end, for the most part, we passed everything that was asked for, hoping the next year we'd have more time than if we started at the beginning of the year. But what I still find out is as aldermen, we're being asked to, it's a budget that comes through each department, through the mayor to the aldermen. And then at the end, the aldermen vote on it or don't vote on it. They're being asked if everything has come through the way it's being presented in each departmental budget as the overall budget. It's a big ask to tell the aldermen to sit there knowing they don't know much about what goes on in each department to say, okay, we're going to cut this program or we're going to fire these people and we're going to try to get this money down that way. It's next to impossible. So as mayor, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to find out what I see and what I'm able to accomplish through each department and as an overall government entity, and then bring that to the aldermen and say, this is what we have. This is what we figured out because we're going to do it together. I'm not going to go in and start telling all the departments, micromanaging them and telling them what's what. We have to be able to work together because really everybody in the government, they're all good, hardworking people. They have great educational backgrounds. They've worked hard to get to these jobs. We just have to look at it as a win-win for everybody when we're talking about how do we enter into the next chapter of Wisconsin Rapids life more fiscally sound than we are at this point. And everybody wants that, whether it's to save their job or to pay less taxes or just to know that you have that financial security in your community. It's what we all want. And that's what I'm going to do as mayor.
Okay, so now I want you to tell me something that you do for fun because you're a pretty intense dude. As I'm sitting here talking to you as he chuckles, I want you to tell me something that you do as fun, whether you do it with your family or whether you just space out, obviously he didn't really know what podcasts were, which is good. He's learning that. So we're going through that. Yeah, it is good to learn. So from this side, yeah, right, to be interviewed. So, and we've talked about, if he is elected, that we'll continue that. And then I want you to talk afterwards. We'll start mentioning what events are coming up and stuff that people can meet you at. You can talk a little bit about that. But first, I want you to tell us something that you do as fun because, like I said, you're pretty intense.
Well, it's not the first time I've been told that. So.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, it's okay. So when I think of fun, that's a tough one because maybe that means I don't have enough of it. When I look at life in general, I never look at, okay, I'm working, I'm going to retire at this age and I'm done. I look at everything I've done up until this point, and that includes the education, meeting the people I did, the kids I've worked with, hopefully helped a few, you never really know who you've impacted in life, but I hope so. Getting into business up here, campaigning has been interesting for me because as I was doing it, as I started this one out, because this was bigger than as aldermen, you're working with a smaller district. So I was able to talk with those folks. But now with the whole city and really the whole surrounding area, I've been building relationships for 18 years and getting to know people and build that integrity and trust with people, so that this kind of came a little bit easier, because I never thought about like putting signs up around the community, but you have to certainly ask people, and then you have to figure out the people, like businesses have to worry about, if I put a sign up, am I going to lose customers? Who am I going to tick off? So, and then even people residential, they said, yeah, I put a sign up once and I had people yelling at me and stuff like that. We just won't do it anymore. So that's fine. So kind of have to understand like how this whole political thing works and who's willing to put up signs or take the risk. So for everybody out there that has allowed me to put up a sign, and every day people are asking me to put up more, which has been great. Thank you for that, because it's been a great way to, one, meet people, get my name out there, and obviously get the visuals up, which has been awesome. But when I look at life in general, like I have fun, like building the business has been fun. We are into real estate, and it's fun when you can work with people and help people and you're running it. I guess it's more for me, probably because of the social work background. It's more like, I don't know, social entrepreneurism. Like it's not just, and I don't think every entrepreneur to some degree has to think this way. Like they can't just be selfish about me and I'm going to make all this money and this and that. Granted, it certainly helps. And the harder you work and the more hours you put in, the more education you get, the better you're going to be at being an entrepreneur and being confident in the world that way. For me, it's always been about helping. Like it's been a service-oriented life, not something I actually chose. Could be because I was raised Catholic, or could just be because of the education I went in. I don't really know, but even going into recycling, it's not like it's the most fun job to do, but I always felt like it was a good way to give back to the community, give back to the world. I mean, you'd be amazed at how much stuff we keep out of the landfill, like it's just amazing. And they're small shops, but yeah, it's been a great adventure to be able to do that. Don't really look at retiring as a sense of like an end thing. So I have fun with that. But more importantly, I think just with my family, my wife, Jenny, and the kids and my extended family, like we certainly enjoy the time that we have here on earth and to spend it together and be able to cook good food and have a few drinks together and talk about life and grow. And then the people that you meet on your way through, like it is fun. Like even being in the government for 3 years, there's times when I get a little frustrated, maybe just not fully seeing the big picture that you want to see happen. But in the end, I'm patient and I'm going to keep plugging away at it. But to me, if you don't take the time to make the relationships work, that's really all about life. I mean, that's the deep stuff. Whereas if you can go on vacation, and certainly we've gone on our vacations, but you're not making any deep connections with your family somewhat, but really life to me is what God kind of put us here for, is to make these connections with people and be able to help hopefully make things better for future generations.
Well, I'm going to say what I think your fun thing is. This is just my take on getting to know you a little bit today, is really people watching, people listening, people talking, people, connecting with people. I think you kind of like that. That's your fun thing. It still sounds intense, but I just get that from you, just even hearing you talk right there. It sounds like you kind of, you're a little deeper in your philosophy. You want to know, and then you see what makes people tick. And that's helpful to what you're doing. And I do think that that's probably that calming effect too, that can put you in that position as mayor where you're central, you're not, and then we talked about it being a nonpartisan, and you certainly are nonpartisan, which I think is a very good thing. And that's really good for the city too. So I think it's a good thing. Okay. So why don't you tell people how they can get hold of you? And I know you gave your phone number, but you can, if you have a Facebook page or if there's other events coming up, I know there'll be interviews and stuff. I think the community center did one before, and I know there's something with the League of Women Voters. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And I don't know if you know other things coming up where you'll be at that people can meet you. And if you have any, printed information that they can get hold of or anything. And I think, like you said, if you steer them towards your Facebook page, that's a big thing, I'm sure. And that probably might have events on it. So I'm going to let him take over on that, and you can talk a little bit about that. And if there's anything else that you want to say, and then if not, we'll close it up there.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just want to say, like, in connection with what you're saying about the relationships and really putting the people first, like, so as mayor or as somebody who's just trying to help things move forward, to me, like, I could have all the ideas in the world, but there's plenty of people that are way smarter. I mean, in my opinion, everybody's way smarter than me in their life, in their own thing and what they see in the world. And so it's not really about me being necessarily a leader or having all these great ideas or platform or, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. There are some things that, I'm going to work on as what I think I can help with. But mostly what I want to do is be able to unleash that spirit in people to stop waiting for somebody, a different company to come in or a different leader to come in and fix things or get them excited about their life for them. I want people to do it for themselves. So going back to what you said earlier, like, yeah, we're going to have some companies come in, and in the end, we don't have a whole lot of control over that as a government. If somebody comes in and they wants to put a business on A Street, as long as they dot their I's and cross their T's and they do everything, by the book that's being asked, you can't stop them from coming in. So people say we have enough coffee shops. You can't really stop a coffee shop from coming in because they'll sue you. If they do everything right and you say, no, we just decided that we don't want you here, that's not the American way. So for right now, we have a lot of coffee shops and pick and choose what you want but in the end, they're here for a reason. They're here because they feel that they can make enough money off of their market share to be able to run a business here. So be it. But ultimately, I guess we're not going to, at this point in time, in my opinion, we're not going to bring in all these big corporations and save us and create all these jobs for us, because everybody in it's not even in America anymore. It's the entire world that's fighting for the same big businesses to come in. So in order for us to incentivize them to come in, we're going to have to give them a lot in order to make that happen. And I just don't think we have a whole lot to give. We do have great infrastructure. We have great electricity. We have great companies that do so many excellent things for our community. And I don't think we really, fully understand that. But those are the things that are going to be able to bring in big companies. But what I see is the entrepreneur, I'm going to call it entrepreneurial, even though it's kind of just a spirit inside everybody that has the capability of learning what they need to learn and able to, in order to we're moving away from the industrial era and we're moving into a technical era. And we need to be able to look at the world and see what the world has to offer in the future versus what was in the past, because we're not going backwards. It's not coming back. So we have to be able to look forward. And in order to do that, it has to teach our kids how to have that critical thinking and excitement and fearlessness to go out into the world, to get educated. You don't have to be the top kid in any high school or the top kid in colleges. You just have to be willing to learn and see the world for what it is and say, I can do this, I can learn this, and we can work together. We're not fighting each other in order to do that. And we start growing this new economy from within every community, not just Wisconsin Rapids and surrounding area, but every community kind of has to face that same, I don't know if it's personality change or just the next chapter of life, like we go through between, being young, raising kids, empty nesters. What do we do next? Like we're entering that phase of existence in the world for the most part. And we have to be able to see that. And we have to, I don't say retrain the kids, but we have to educate them in such a way that they see this and they're excited about it. And it's not a fearful thing. It's just the way life is right now. So
they've certainly been brought up in a different atmosphere.
Yeah.
My thing was Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah. I love Saturday morning cartoons.
I did too. Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, why don't you tell people where they can get hold of you, your Facebook page, where to go?
Sounds good.
So and if there's any events
coming up. There's a few events coming up. There's some smaller ones. We have a landlord meeting coming up on the 17th at Elks Lodge, and that's at 6:00. And then we have the League of Women's Voters coming up on the 23rd at the library, and it'll be a meet and greet. So it's 6 to 7 and then 7 to 8 with some of the school board stuff. And then for my Facebook page is Zacher for Mayor. We'll get you there, and I'm putting out as much information I can. I'll put these meetings on there also.
Why don't you spell it? Yeah.
ZACHER for Mayor. And I'll put more information out there. And again, my number is on that page. It's on the city website. It's 715-321-0727. If you like what I have to say, give me a call. If you don't like what I have to say, give me a call. I'd rather talk it out and at least understand each other and get to the human side of the conversation versus just shutting down on each other. And I think that would be great.
And help educate people on agreeing to disagree. And it's okay. We can move forward. We can learn.
In the end, we're all in the same boat together.
Absolutely. We are. Well, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much much, Matt, for stopping by and doing this podcast. It does help get the information out and it helps people get to know you a little bit more on a personal level. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do that. Thank you, folks, for listening to the Cheryl and Shirley Show. And I'll let Matt say goodbye. We wish him the best. And if anybody needs to get hold of him, please go to his Facebook page. It's really a smart thing to do. And make sure that you vote on April 2nd. That's probably the most important part of it at all.
Well, I appreciate it, Cheryl. And thank you for the time that you've given me. And thanks for, putting the effort into running a podcast and doing all the things you do in the community, being a part of it. You're putting your foot out there to actually get involved. Yeah. And it's not easy. It's easy. Again, I always encourage people to, social media is going to have its place in life. But if you're willing to put your foot out there with social media, then please be willing to put it out there face to face with people and realize that your words do have impact. And it's easier to say things that are hurtful when you don't have to look somebody, face to face in their eyes to see that pain that you could be causing. So if you're willing to put it out on Facebook or out on social media, please be willing to also talk to that person face to face and attempt to build that relationship before you go further with it. Thank you.
I can't agree more with that. That is totally the truth. If you have something that you need to say, don't sit behind a computer and type it out, because you're saying things that are going to be out there forever. Number one, you need to remember that. And number two, it can be very damaging to others. So just remember that when you're typing, and remember that when you have an opinion, because opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got them. And as my dad would say, they all stunk but his. And he's not here anymore. So I guess it's me to carry that on. I wish you the best. Have a great day and a good week, and make sure you vote on April 2nd. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good day. Bye.